Sure, and thank you very much for being here today. The Earlier this month we did a webinar for you called "Building a Case for Homeownership Today." If you didn't get the chance to see that, then you need to go to the association's website and go to their YouTube page and watch the recording on it. And it's got great handouts in it also. But today we're focusing on something that I think is very important. Many years ago, there was a comedian that used to say, I don't want a lot out of life. I just want an endless supply of 50s, $50 bills. And the funny part about that is I would talk to some of my friends, why wouldn't you ask for an endless supply of $100 bills? Well, if it's an endless supply, you've got all the money you need to begin with. 50s are one of those denominations that are really interesting. It doesn't look like you're flaunting anything. It's certainly a whole lot more than a 5, 10, or a 20, and that's nice. Now, the reason I bring that up is because whenever you're sitting around talking to yourself about how you can make your business a little bit better, you're bound to be thinking to yourself, I just need more prospects that are ready to buy and sell right now. So if you just adapted that saying to say, I need an endless supply of prospects that were ready to go whenever I'm ready, and you could work at your own leisure, that would be success. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today. I'm going to share my screen and get it up here for you. Then I'm going to move this little guy over here so you don't have to look at that and you'll see the entire screen. The workbook that Lana is going to send out to you has everything in here. It's a 20-page text workbook, so you can read it and you understand everything I'm talking about. I may elaborate on a few things that are different than the way it's said in the book, but I wrote the book, so it's going to be primarily the same. We've also got a few other handouts that will come with it, and I'll mention them as we go, and then you'll say, oh, well, that might be helpful. I'll use that as a tip or what have you. So as we get started on here and we start thinking about all the different sources of lead generation, and there's a lot of them out there, and I've got them numbered this particular way because from the very moment I got into real estate, my mother got me into real estate while I was in college and said, what you need to do is get a license and get a listing and sit on it on the weekends, and who knows, you might sell it. And so sure enough, I did. It was sold my own listing. That was really a nice thing. It still is today, even though it may have a few more complications than it did when I got started in real estate. But as you look at all these other things, a lot of agents will move from one source to another source to another source to another source periodically. And over their career, maybe they've tried everything, and they probably will. And it's sort of that grass is greener on the other side of the fence type of thing. As I heard somebody describe one time, it may appear to be greener on the other side of the fence, but it's just as hard to mow the grass over there as it is on your side of the fence. So what I want to do is take a different perspective and show you the cost it takes to acquire a customer. If you're a fan of Shark Tank, the show where the people come on, the entrepreneurs, and they're trying to sell a portion of their business to the sharks, one of the most frequent questions asked is, what is your cost to acquire a new customer? And the reason they need to know that is because if they're going to scale this business to where it gets really big, it's going to cost them a certain amount of money. And is it going to be justified for that? So if you look at these different sources of prospects, I just want you to see that the lowest cost to acquire a customer is through your sphere of influence. I'll define that in my terms in a moment. Number 6 over here is past customers and clients. I've got lots of information to back on that. But if you get over here and look at number 10, which is fee-based third parties, and we'll look at those in a second also, these appear to be incredibly easy, but it's absolutely the most expensive way to acquire a customer, and it cuts out your profit in that. So we'll look at these things in a moment. The question is, what's happening in our business? It has been changing ever since I got into the business, which was in 1968. And it's not that it has been, it's gotten worse, it's gotten better, it's gotten different. That's what's happened. There'll always be people that are buying and selling houses. The way they're bought and sold may be a little bit different. The way the agent interacts with the people may be a little bit different. But we've got a ton of people out there right now that are trying to disrupt the model that we've got. They did it in all sorts of other businesses. If you want to look at Amazon as an example, since they're an enormous company that everybody is familiar with, the situation is they created online purchasing, and that was unbelievable because earlier when they first came out, they were strictly selling books. And by the way, it really affected a lot of the big stores that sold books. Some of them went out of business. Some of them had to change their model and things like that. Well, people have tried to disrupt the real estate business ever since I've been in real estate. Sears and Roebuck first got, and that maybe we should just call it Sears, but they got into the real estate business. They tried early on to get into the real estate business, and it didn't really work. They thought they could sell real estate underneath the escalators in their department stores the way they sold insurance, and it just didn't work. Then there were Merrill Lynch, the stockbrokers. They were the first entry into the real estate business, and there have been plenty of other ones in there, and we've had hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars poured into it in the last 10 years. Also, all of them think that they can change the way things are done because of technology and what have you, and lower the price and increase their profits and drive other people out of business. Well, this past fall, we've had the lawsuit that finally was settled by everybody. We assume we know what it's going to be like when it changes our business. But when the news first broke that whole thing, everybody was talking about buyers are going to save money because it's going to cost them less to get into a house. And I'm not trying to go down that path and explain that whole situation to you, but that's not what is going to happen. If anybody benefits because the buyer is going to have their own agent, it's going to be the seller, because the seller doesn't necessarily have to pay the buyer's commission. They can choose to keep it themselves. The buyer's not going to automatically benefit from that. So I don't want to talk about that much, but I do want to talk about the way lower commissions affect all of us. So if you were trying to figure out the easy way to get prospects on a regular basis, you'd say, oh, I'm going to take out pay-per-click, which are another word for those, of course, are ads. And I could do them in social media. I could do them on Google search or some of the other search engines that are out there. And you pay for impressions, you pay for clicks, and you're hoping you can convert those. Now, some of you, I talked to a realtor yesterday from Florida, and he was saying he spent a lot of money on that, and it didn't really convert them. And the problem with it is the gestation period, meaning it takes a long time for them to decide to finally get around to buying the house because they start way early. So you have to have a system for that. Another method are the subscription models that are out there. And so these are all companies that will set you up with a website, in many cases, set you up with a CRM program, and they're going to funnel leads to you. And then you pay a price for those. They're more expensive than the pay-per-click. And again, maybe you've tried them, maybe you haven't. They do work. The problem is it's the follow-up, the follow-up, the follow-up, as it is with a lot of things. And then finally, there's a lot of companies that are now saying, you know, I don't just want a monthly fee. I don't want to just get paid by the click. I want to be a partner in the transaction. And if you belong to Zillow FlexFlow program, you know how that works, where they're getting a percentage of every commission you make, just like you would send to a realtor that was sending you a lead. And these companies are actually getting licensed in every state. And all they have to do is find a broker that's willing to allow them to use their license, and it works. That's the most expensive way I know to acquire customers right now. So if we looked at something over here to just illustrate this point, and this is just pulling numbers out of the sky, I'm not suggesting a commission rate or anything else, but if we looked at the portal referral method, the one I was just talking about, and you sold a $400,000 house and you had a 3% commission on that side of the transaction, and they charged 35% referral, that's $4,200 of your $12,000 you're not going to get to spend. Then what is left, the operating portion of that, is $7,800. Maybe you're on a split with your broker. Maybe it's a bigger split than this one, but I'm using a 70% split. Your percentage of the sales price is 1.365%. Now, pay-per-click, because it's less expensive to do that, it's still money. You pay for it in advance, regardless of whether you convert them or not. Over here, you only pay when you convert them. So in one respect, there's less risk, but you've got to pay a higher price. This could come out to somewhere around 1.96%. So you're actually earning more of the commission. But if you got your customers from sphere of influence, and there is some cost associated with that, but nowhere near these two numbers, then your percentage of the commission could be 2.1%, which is a 54% increase over this. So instead of doing a bigger volume, you could earn the same amount of money with a lower volume, or if you did the same volume, you could earn a lot more money because you got a bigger percentage of that. So that's one way to look at it. That's the customer acquisition cost, and you need to think about it. If you were going to look at your accounting, look at all your books and everything, you would just take every bit of promotional expenses to acquire a customer, including referral fees that you would pay out, and divide it by the number of dollars that you've got, and that'll come up with the costs. So that will give you that number. Okay, let's just talk about this for a second. Agents have to control their leads to avoid the downward pressure on commissions, because that's what they're all trying to do. They think that the weakest form of competitors lower the commission to gather market share. And so therefore your margins shrink. The solution is to establish yourself with a select group of people with whom you expect to do business. Now, in the recent weeks, different people have been suggesting different ways for you to explain this to your customers, your buyers. And one of them is to build your value proposition, which is what are all the things that you do that justifies your commission. Well, this group of people we're talking about are people that know, like, and trust you already. So they're part of your sphere of influence, people you have influence over. Now, whether you called it a magic list or your mailing list or your database or your contacts, or it doesn't matter what, I've heard them called a lot of different things over the years. They're really people that you have an influence over, and that's what we're going to call them for the most of this group. It's the quality, not the quantity of the people in your sphere of influence. I talk to people occasionally that will tell me that, oh, I've got a database of 5,000 people. And I say, really? Where did you get that database? Well, I accumulated it. Well, how? Well, he scammed them all. He stole them off of a database, screen scraped them off of a website, or this, that, or the other. That's not... I mean, it is names, but it's quantity, not quality. What we want is people that absolutely love us. And there's an expression called a raving fan, where you've exceeded the expectations that they had going into the transaction. And you do that by giving them more. So what we've got to do is to provide them more value than anyone else. I just thought of a story that came from a book that all of a sudden is on the tip of my tongue and I can't remember it, but here's the way the story goes. This guy owned a candy store. Now, you may not have ever gone into a candy store like this, but this was a candy store where the cases had glass in front of them. And if you picked jelly beans or this one over here, the person behind the counter would scoop them up, put them on a scale, weigh them, you'd pay by the pound, and then you would go out. So he had to leave the store for a minute. He had a couple young women that were working there in his store. And so when he came back, there were 3 or 4 customers all standing behind Mary, and Susie didn't have anybody in front of hers. And so he walked up to the last person. He said, you know, you can go to this girl over here. She's free and she can take care of you right now. And they said, no, we're going to stay with Mary because she gives us more. And all the things that were going through his mind right then were, oh my gosh, is she giving them more than a pound or a half a pound or a quarter of a pound or whatever they were buying? Is she giving my profits away or anything? So he started watching her. And so what would happen is Mary would take her scoop, put it into the candy jar, and then start putting a little bit in the scale. The scale would come up a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more, till it got to the amount that they wanted. The way Susie did it was entirely different. She took a great big scoop of candy, put it up in the scales, which was way more than it needed, and she would take stuff out of the scale. And so the impression was that Mary was giving them more than Susie was. And that's what you've got to create to get a raving fan. Now, Ken Blanchard is known for this book. He's got several versions of it out there called Raving Fan, and it describes a customer who's overwhelmed and floored by customer service they have received, and they can't stop telling everybody about it. They're your biggest fans. That's what we want. Now, in the book, he says, your customers, some of your customers are only satisfied because their expectations are so low and nobody else is doing any better. Well, in our competitive market, there's always going to be people that are either going to try to do it better than you or charge less than you. So just having satisfied customers is not good enough anymore. If you really want a booming business, you have to create raving fans that will go out of their way to tell someone that they need to use you as the realtor. So let's see what the value of a raving fan is. In today's market, the average home price is roughly nationally $400,000. If the commission was 2.75 or 0.275%, 2.75%, then you'd have a commission, but we'd have to get a percentage for the broker. So let's say you were on an 80-20 split, and the people stay in the house for 10 years. So you could take this formula right here and come up with your connection value. So whatever price home you're selling on average, times the average commission you earn on that, times whatever your commission split is, times the tenure rate. 10-year is what this is for. It would make the value of a raving fan $880 per year. So if you had 200 raving fans in your database, you could earn $176,000 a year, either from them using you, but they stay in their house for 10 years, or they're telling people to use you. And that's an exciting thing. An agent's income can be in direct proportion to the number of raving fans in their sphere of influence. That is the important thing. Harvey McKay, in his book Swim with the Sharks, said, let me see the size of your database and who's in it, and I can tell you how much money you can make. And I'll do the same thing. Earning the privilege to be called your realtor. That's what you want people to say. Hey, this is Pat Zabie is my realtor. and that's what they want. So they tell everyone that sort of thing. Well, let's look at this from one different perspective. Let's just say that we want to know how much a customer is worth. Because, by the way, I talk to people about their databases and they say, well, I don't have many people in my database. And you say, really? How long have you been in business? 20 years. Yeah. How many houses do you sell a year? I sell about 30 houses a year. Okay, 20 times 30, you should have 1,500 people in your database for sure. Have to have that many people in there. Okay. Where have you got your people? Some people have their names written on little pieces of paper, stuck in a book, on a sticky note, a card with a bunch of other cards with a rubber band around it in a drawer at their desk and things like that. That's not the way to treat a lifetime customer. I want you to think of this. Let's say today you sold a customer a $400,000 house. And then you stayed in the real estate business and you stayed in touch with those people. 10 years from now, they decide, ooh, are ready to move up. So they call you on the phone and you get a listing for $592,000. Now that's based on 4% appreciation and a 10-year holding period. 4% appreciation nationwide is statistically a good number to use. So you can use lower if you want, but I've got proof a 50-year average on that. So at any rate, that would be a $592,000. They'd buy a house 50% larger than that. They'd buy $888,000 house. Just look at the combination of those two together. Yeah, it's $1.5 million worth of volume. You got a listing and made a sale. Then they stayed in it for another 10 years. You stayed in the business. You stayed in touch with them. At the end of 20 years, they call you on the phone. They say, we're ready to sell this house and move up again. You get a listing for $1.3 million. You sell them a house for almost $2 million. Wow, I can't believe these numbers are getting so big. It's compounding over time. Stay in the business. You'll do fine. Now, let's say, again, they keep it for 10 years because you stayed in the business and you stayed in touch. They called you on the telephone and they said, we're ready to sell this house. Now, at this point, let's say who knows what they're going to do. They're not going to buy another house. So let's stop it here after 30 years. Well, first of all, you're going to get a $3 million listing. The total value of these 6 transactions is $8 million. At 2.75% and an 80% split, that earned you almost $178,000. And where have you got that person's name written? On a little scrap of paper? Come on, this should be in a database where you can massage it, keep notes on it, keep valuable records, just like you do your savings account, your banking account, your investment accounts, and things like that. Very, very important. If you happen to be 100% split, oh my gosh, it's over $200,000. And so then let's see how many people you've got in your database and how much it's worth to you. A lot of money. So our objective today is to build a network of potential clients through consistent communication. We want to position ourselves as a trusted real estate resource and nurture relationships for future transactions and referrals. That is something you could put in your business plan if you wanted to, because that's what we're trying to do. We're going to build our sphere of influence because it's going to increase our business and it's something that we can project a reasonable income off of. In the book, you've got 5 steps here: identifying the context, gathering the information, organizing the data, continually growing your sphere of influence, and finally developing the communications plan. So we're going to go through these one at a time. So, identifying the people in our sphere of influence. It's a network of individuals and contacts with whom you have a personal or professional connection. So it could be a friend, relative, or a neighbor. It could be a past customer. It could be somebody that you're doing something else with. But that is the people that you might have influence over. This is, I'm going to quote this several times in the next few minutes, but this is the current NAR profile of home buyers and sellers. 65% of sellers and 56% of buyers selected their agent because they had some form of relationship with them. So dealing with a total stranger is in the minority. You have a better chance of doing business with somebody who already knows, likes, and trusts you, even if you've not sold them a house or they bought a house from you yet. You could have gone to school with them. You could be standing up in church with them. There's any number of different ways that they could trust you without having real estate experience. So you start with your friends, family, colleagues, acquaintances, past clients, anyone in your existing network who might be interested in your real estate service. That's who's in your sphere of influence. Another stat from that report I was telling, 71% of buyers and 81% of sellers only contacted one agent. You've got to be sure that this person thinks of you when they think of this. This is where the top of mind awareness comes in. When they finally get around to deciding, I need a realtor, I'm going to buy, I'm going to sell, the vast majority, 70% and 80%, only contact one agent. It's essential that they know you're in the real estate business and you're good at it. If you don't toot your horn, nobody's going to toot your horn. You've got to let them know. So you're going to do it not just once. I hear people say, oh, you know, my friends are different than everybody else because I only have to tell them in real estate once and they'll remember. Oh my gosh. That is just like burying your head in the sand. That is nowhere near true. Don't you think that they meet someone or somebody they already know gets in the real estate business and that could disrupt you from that position of number one? 87% of sellers and 90% of buyers, so almost 9 out of 10 people that you sell a house to or for say they would use you again and recommend you to others. That is a phenomenal statistic, and it's because it's so close to the time they sold or bought a house. Here's the reality. Only 35% of people actually do. The typical realtor earns 15% of their business from repeat clients and customers and only 20% through referrals of past customers and clients. So that's 35%. Well, look, that other piece of the pie is enormous, 65% of it. Where did 2/3 of the people who said they'd use us again and refer business to us go? Why does this happen? And I'll tell you, because you're not taking care of them, you're not communicating with them, you have not let them know that you want to do business with them again in the future. Now, if you say, well, I'm new to this city, my spouse got transferred here and I really don't know anybody here. You know what? The average person knows 200 people. I'm talking about average. Each of those 200 people that you know knows 200 people. You are one step away from how many people? 400? Nope. 4,000? Nope. 40,000 people. One step away from 40,000 people. You could have a very low conversion rate and make a lot of money with a 200-person database. So keep that one in mind. Your contacts factored by the top of mind awareness that you have with each of them are directly related to your income. So I'm telling you the same thing in different ways to drive it home that these are important. Now, in the United States at this time, we've got about 330 million people, but we also have 1.5 million realtors. So if you divided everybody up, you would get 220 people. Well, that's not the case. You're not going to divide them up. But by the way, I'll just show you one more statistic. All the licensed agents in the United States are not realtors, even though they're probably selling the majority of the property. If you counted all the licensed agents, you'd only get 110 people would be your fair quota. So what I want you to do is to come up with these people. If I just gave you a yellow pad right now and said, okay, write down the name of everybody you know, and you're doing this from your mind, you'd might get 50, 75, 100 names, but at some point you'd kind of hit a wall and all of a sudden you'd stop. You wouldn't think anymore. So what I want you to think of now is to think of small groups of people in a circle and think about everybody that you know. So I'll give you an example of it. Let's start with your email address book. In whether you're using Google or Outlook or Yahoo or whatever it is, it's got an address book in there. Go through that and come up with people. You should have a list of everybody you've sold a house to. You should maintain that. Don't leave that up to your broker. You need it. And the only reason they should not be on your list is if they died and they don't have any they don't have a surviving spouse or children or anything else. You've got an address book on your cell phone and you can look through that. You probably have some kind of a holiday card list. So maybe at Christmas time you send things out, or some other time of the year, or if one of your children was getting married, would you want to invite certain people? These are different groups of people that when you think about them in little small groups, you can name more of them. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of these with you, but just look at some of the names: immediate family, your current personal friends. We grow apart from people. I went to college with people I don't run around with anymore. I see them on Facebook, but we don't, necessarily go out to dinner or talk that much. So you've got previous personal friends from different parts of your life. You've got extended family. You've got immediate family and extended family. Could be cousins, could be people that you treat like family. Fellow church members, if you go to church. Maybe you've been to different churches over the time and you've got friends in different ones, previous coworkers, current neighbors. I'm not talking about everybody in a 3-block radius of your house, by the way. I'm talking about the ones that you really know and like. You know their names, you know their family name, you do something for them. You could borrow something from them if you wanted to. They would pick up your mail. They would water your plants. You'd pick up their trash or around the house if they were out of town, so it wouldn't look like it was that. I just got back from a trip, and my wife and I left, and my son came over here to stay with the dogs, and so he was taking care of all of that, and he said, Dad, you guys in Dallas have the best trash service I've ever seen. We have alleys here, by the way. So we put our trash in the bins just like anybody else. You roll it out to the edge of the alley. And he says, I put those out when I was supposed to put them out. And do you know that those guys roll them back up and put them exactly where they should be? He says, they're great. I said, no. They're not great. That is my neighbor that is doing it for me. Whoever gets out there first puts the neighbor's trash cans back. So that's the kind of neighbor I'm talking about there. Friends from school, college, different schools, grade schools, colleges that you went to, civic organizations, past teachers. You can go through all of these different groups. And by the time if you just got 4 or 5 out of each one of those different sections, you start with a big group of people right there. Now, if you happen to be married, what I want you to do is to have your spouse do the very same thing. Now, you're going to have to sell them on this fact because they've got their own job, and when they're not doing their job, they're wanting to do something else. And so I can tell you what a lot of spouses would tell you. Let me see your list and I'll just see if you left anybody out. That doesn't work that way. They've got their own sphere of influence, and the people in their sphere of influence would do business with us because we're married to their friend in their sphere of influence. So they need to do it separately, and then you combine the two. So you've got in the book on page 7 a workbook that is the same type of thing I just went through with you right now, just not in a graphical format. I also, which is one of the handouts you can get, this is a Word document, and you'll be able to open it up. And this is the several pages. I think it's 5 pages long. And so you'll be able to, don't bother trying to put names, addresses, phone numbers on. Just put a name on there. Once you get the name on there, you can find out all the rest of the information. Okay. The basic information you're going to need: name, spouse's name, address, cell phones, email addresses, birthdays, and anniversaries. And maybe you don't have the birthdays and anniversaries. I'd get them. In gathering the contact information, we start with the people that we know already. It's easier. When you're talking with them, say, I was looking and I don't have your personal email address. I've got your work email address. I bet you'd rather me communicate with you on your personal email address. They say yes, or whatever other information you need. You can go to social media, engage them through that, follow them, comment on their posts, ask them to follow you if they're not. When you locate them on social media, check their contact information, because Facebook, for instance, under other information, have got a place for them to put their email or phone number. Some people don't choose to use that, but you'd be surprised how many people do. And so you can get that up to date. You can also get birthdays off of Facebook. They don't let you download them into a spreadsheet, but you can get all of the people who are following you, your friends, birthdays right there. And then on phone calls, every time you talk to a person, you should open up their contact record, look at it while you're talking, and then say, I need this, I need that. So it's a process of acquiring all this information. You just have to be consciously aware that I'm trying to do that. So when you have a phone number, once you've got a phone number on a person, and maybe it's somebody you haven't talked to in a long time, and you say, oh, it's going to feel weird if all of a sudden I start sending them a whole bunch of stuff. Just say, pick up the phone call. I was thinking about you, and we haven't spoken in a long time. What's going on? How are things going? How's so-and-so? Is your son still playing lacrosse, or whatever it might be? And that gets the conversation going. After you have sincerely reconnected, tell them that you have a newsletter with market updates and a whole lot of other good real estate homeownership type of information. And you just want to verify that you've got their correct email address. Then ask for the spouse's email address. And so another way that you might try to say it is, recently, if you can weave this into the conversation, recently I shared something on staging tips or whatever it might have been on Facebook. Do you follow real estate updates on Facebook? And you'll find out, no, we don't use Facebook. I do use LinkedIn. Now you know what their preference is. They need to be following you on LinkedIn. Now, another thing you might want to do is have a follow-up with them after this phone call. So here's one that we developed, which was strictly asking them to put you on the safe sender list. Spam is a real problem today, and if they don't have you on a spam program, their email server might be doing the same thing. So this one just says, it was nice to talk with you today, and we need to do it more often. Please take the time to mark me as a safe sender so my email will be sure to be delivered to you. So that all they have to do is right click and say safe sender, and it's done. Anytime you attend events or gatherings, then you have a chance to interact with your sphere of influence. Homeowners Association is a great one. Your own personal homeowners association is what I'm talking about. I'm sure they do some functions throughout the year. Online forums for newsletters, home value, these things will get people engaged with you. Your business cards, you need to be passing them out. People do still use and keep business cards. Professional networks, whether it be a service club such as Kiwanis or any of the other ones that are out there, or a speech program, American Sales Masters, or any of those types of associations. And then LinkedIn, of course, obviously, and just if you're struggling to obtain contact information, reach out to them directly. If you don't have a good email, it bounced back, reach out to them and say, you know, I sent you something, it bounced back. I must not have a up-to-date email address. Just do it. That's the easy way to make it happen. Okay, number 3, organizing. I'm going to have to pick up the pace here again. Organizing the information you collect on each person within your sphere of influence is paramount to maintaining and nurturing those valuable relationships, because you can't remember everything. And you cannot take a ginkgo biloba to remember everything you talk to people about. The common buzzword now are customer relationship management programs. These things are expensive, they're hard to learn, they take way too much effort to work on. But if you're using lead generation software, you probably need something, especially if you have a team. But if you don't have a team, you probably don't need something this complicated. At this point in my life, I want to simplify things, make it easy. Contact managers are what we used to call them prior to this, customer relationship management. And it still does more than what most people need it to do. Some of you will never use the mail merge or some of the marketing features or the transaction management in a contact manager. And so if you're not going to do that sort of thing, maybe the easiest thing that you should be using is your email program right now, because it has basic contact information. It has a place to write notes, do mail merge, email, calendar, and it will sync flawlessly with your telephone. You never go anywhere without this telephone. So we want all of the people we know and their notes on our phone. So you can see examples of both Google and Outlook. This is a contact record, and it gives me the information I need. It allows me to have dated notes. This is what you should be using to maintain your database, your sphere of influence, for the most part of you. Okay. If I had the opportunity to sit down with each of you, I would probably find out that you've got your names not in just one place, they're in a bunch of different places, and it complicates things. You go look for a name in one place, you can't find it, you're talking to yourself saying, I know I've got their name, and you can't find it anywhere. Simplify your life, consolidate all the different databases into one. All of these different sources could be put into, most of them, if they're digital already, can be imported, export them out of the program they're in, import them into whatever your program of choice is going to be, and get them into one program that will synchronize with your telephone. I said this a moment ago, but every time you talk to a person, open their contact record, quickly look over the notes, verify that you've got a email address, meaning not just see that I've got an email address. You know, I've got your email as such and such. Is that the right email address? Now, you don't have to go through every line in there, but this is the first thing that you're going to do, because it's the easiest, fastest way for you to communicate with people. Try to complete and update other information as you talk, and always, always, always make a dated note about what you talk about. Then, and this can be done in an email program, it doesn't have to be a contact manager or a CRM program, schedule a follow-up. Just like when you go to your person that cuts your hair, the dentist's office or anything, they set up the next appointment later on down the road. So whatever you're talking about, if they said, you know, we're going to be thinking about moving, really? What are you going to do? Well, just as soon as my last child gets out of school. Well, what grade is she in now? And so you start making notes and then figure out when to call them. And don't wait until the person graduates with that example, because they will have listed with someone else. Now, another way of organizing your stuff is to get all the records together. One of the problems is, on any software program, you have to open record by record by record by record, and it takes a lot of effort. So let's just pretend you've got it all in Outlook. I can take it all from Outlook, download it to a comma separated value file, which is a spreadsheet, and it goes in rows like this. I can quickly, let's just say I had 200, 500, 1,000 names. I can look here and just go down a column and see how many people I do not have email addresses for, or I don't have cell phones for, and that sort of thing. So this gives you a way to work faster. And then you can turn around after you've got it corrected in a single spreadsheet and turn around and put it into back into the program that you got it from. So after you've fixed it, you save it as a either an Excel workbook or a comma delimited CSV file, and that way you can put it back into your program of choice, whatever you're using. So this is another handout that we've got for you. When you're not at your computer, which is a lot of the time, of course, you're never without your telephone. And so here's what I'm going to suggest to you. Instead of trying to remember when you get back to the office to put a dated note in there, you either make yourself an email, send it to yourself, make yourself a note, and then save it. And I would use, instead of texting it out, use the little microphone in here, dictate the conversation you want. It will put it in writing. Then when you get back, you can open it up, copy it, and paste it into their contact record. And that way you will not forget what you talked to them about. So you just need to use more of what you've got instead of getting new things. Number 4, continually growing your sphere of influence. Just normal attrition will cause the database sphere of influence to go down in numbers. So you're going to have a procedure that whenever, let's say you're using software registers for an open house, type in their name and what have you. So then you take that, add it to your database, or you've got a procedure for every closing or door knocking or whatever it might be. If you're communicating, people might say to you, well, why do you want my email address? Well, I have a newsletter that has got really great homeowner information, and I wanted to be able to send it to you. I send it out every 2 weeks. And it's not long. It's got great information on it, and you can quit anytime you want. Okay, perfect. That's a simple way to do it. It's got to be considered valuable. You also can consider customer appreciation events. And these are just some examples of different things you could talk about by to help grow your sphere of influence. You also could occasionally ask for referrals because your customers, most of them, are not on commission, and as a result, they don't understand. So what we have to do is teach them we want referrals. So you could send things like this or post them on social media. Circle prospect around just listed and just sold. So you decide, do I want to do 10 houses, 20 houses, 50 houses, 100 houses? We just sold your neighbor's home. Because if you don't circle prospect, by the way, this is one of the most primitive but effective ways to do it. And if you don't believe me, just see if this doesn't sound familiar to yourself. You got a listing in a neighborhood where there haven't been anything on the market in a long, long time. And just as soon as you got the listing, it sold quickly. And then next thing you know, other signs are popping up in the neighborhood. And some of them may even have come from your office. So you say to yourself, that should have been my listing. And it should have been your listing. If you'd have circled prospect, it probably would be your listing. We also need to reconcile our contacts periodically. We need to go through and see, are the people that are in our social media also in our database, our contacts? All right, I'm going to talk to you about the communication plan, and the cornerstone to working your sphere of influence is the communication plan. You just have to have this to be able to make it worthwhile. It's the only thing that justifies having a database, a sphere of influence, is the communication. Now, at any one point in time, only about 10% of the people in your sphere of influence will be considering a move. So you cannot do product marketing as your sole method of communication. Product marketing are things like just listed, just sold, open house, all this stuff. If that's what you're doing all the time, you're alienating. Yes, you're attracting or going towards a small percentage of the people in your database, giving them information they want, but 90% of them or more are not interested in that sort of thing. So you've got to give them stuff. I personally believe it ought to be information that will help them be a better homeowner. Helping people be better homeowners when they buy, sell, and all the years in between. That's the objective. And by the way, that becomes a great slogan if you want that. So if that's the case, we need a better content mix for our stuff. So whether we're sending out emails or we're doing social media, this is what it should look like. 65% should be educational and information. Educational and informational brands you as an authority and as a person that is actually trying to help them. Another 10%, same type of stuff, could be on a local level, something that happens just in your area of marketing, neighborhood, city, whatever you want to call it. 5% could be testimonials and reviews where you've got customers that are happy with you. That's good. Only 10% of it should be product marketing, 10% of the overall mix. And here's one that realtors sometimes leave out because you say to yourself, well, I don't want to share all my personal stuff with people. Well, I'm not telling you to become ultra personal with them. I am saying if you like, if you've been going to things for your children or grandchildren, show them off. If you like to cook, if you have hobbies, what happens is other people have the same hobby and then boom, it creates a bond. And so you've got something in common between the two. One of my all-time favorite professional speakers said, you can have everything you want in life if you will just help other people get what they want. Of course, it was Zig Ziglar. This is so perfect. What you sow, you should reap is a biblical way to say that. But offer them something that directly benefits the homeowner so that it remains relevant to your relationship. In other words, years ago, it was in the 80s, marketing companies started addressing this problem of what do you talk to people about that everybody needs? Recipe cards. Everybody has to eat. So this would bridge the gap between buying and selling. Well, the problem with that is it's like Pavlov ringing the bell every time he gave the dogs food, and then after a certain period of time, you could ring the bell and the dogs would say, I'm hungry, he'd start salivating. Well, if you do something other than real estate related material on a regular basis as your method of communication, the problem is that becomes your brand as opposed to real estate being your brand. Customer communications is the principal reason to have a sphere of influence. So the people in there are not all going to be raving fans, but it's going to be a progression. Starts out as strangers, friends, customers, repeat people that have bought from you more than once, and then the people that actually send you referrals. Another way to say that is connect, convert, and retain. So if they know you, like you, trust you, and remember you, they'll do business with you in the future. That's what we're trying to do. Now, I'm sure you've heard of the Rule of 33. It's a thing that came from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And what it said basically was for every 12 people in your sphere of influence, every 12 people you know that are in your sphere of influence, and you touch 33 times a year, you will generate 2 sales, maybe directly with them or indirectly because they referred something to you. So if your goal, and this is just the old herb formula right here, but if I wanted to make 50 annual transactions, and the conversion rate was what this is. For every 12 that I touch 33 times a year, I get 2 sales. That's a 16.7% rate of return. So 50 divided by 16.7%. I need 300 contacts in my database. So if I was your coach and you told me, oh, I want to do 50 transactions next year, and I say, okay, well, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to work my sphere of influence really hard. Great. Well, right now you've got 120 names in your sphere of influence. You need to get it up to 300. How are you going to do that? That would be my conversation with you. When you develop your communication plan, these are all topics that you can talk about that don't involve buying or selling. Everybody wants to know, is the market going up or down? Is the value of my home going up? Do I have more equity? That's an exciting thing for them to know. Maybe they want to refinance their property. Maybe they've got a adjustable rate mortgage. They want to get a fixed rate mortgage. Maybe they need help with a air conditioning, a plumber, a this or that. You've got all these different things that you can do for people that are part of your knowledge base that you can share in the communication plan. So on page 16, you've got lots of different suggestions in here for you, so you can certainly go through that. The newsletter is one of the best ways because, you know, you talk about drip campaigns that came from contact managers, and now it's in CRM programs. A newsletter rather, is a drip campaign. It's very generic. It helps people be better homeowners, and you're sharing things with them on a consistent basis. I think weekly is too much. Monthly is not enough. I think bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, is perfect. So these are the types of things you would talk about. Now, these are newsletters that we have that are single topic newsletters because we've done enough research and have enough experience that we know people don't want to read a book. They don't have time to do that. They want easily digestible information that is delivered to them. And if they can see that they don't have any use for that particular topic, they move on. But because occasionally they get great information out of it, then they will not unsubscribe. And then these buttons on a newsletter are really important because the article could be about one thing, but spontaneously they go, ooh, I wonder how much my home is worth, or I wonder what homes are available in a certain area, or I need a service provider. They can contact you. You make it easy for them to contact you off the newsletter. A blog is similar to a newsletter, but when you put it on your website, the most important thing that you need to know is it's improved search engine rankings. It improves search engine optimization and it increases your rankings. Because it's free information, good content, and everything else, it's a good thing to have on there. Blogs are free. You can repurpose the newsletter into the blog and have it right there on your website. Don't house it somewhere else. You get juice. That's the rankings I'm talking about, the search engine optimization, get people to your website by having good information on there. A weekly blog is news, not advertising. So that's why it needs to be on there. We talked about this a minute ago, but just remember in your postings, a lot of it is educational and informational, and a prudent amount of it is product marketing. We're trying to maintain top of mind awareness while we promote our brand awareness. Okay, here's some postings for you. You'll notice these are kind of like a billboard in one respect because they have good information, easy to read, doesn't take a lot of time. It supports the fact that you're a real estate professional and also creates top of mind awareness. Colorful, graphically pleasing, variety of topics. they will get something out of these things. And that's what's important, you showing them anything having to do with home ownership. Now, I realize, folks, we're a little bit at our 1 hour point, but I'll try to work a little faster. We're on the last step on the communications. The holiday and special occasion greetings, another thing that you could send out. This 2 days ago was Memorial Day. You've got Father's Day coming up next month, and then 4th of July and things like that, and birthdays and anniversaries. These are all things that are important that let people know you care about them. You've heard the expression, I don't care how much you know till I know how much you care. That's what happens when you send birthday, anniversary, and other holiday greetings. Videos. You could, in the drop of a hat, make a video, support it with graphics that you get off your MLS, and it brings people up to date. And you could put it as a reel on Instagram or in the movies on Facebook. And there's just so many different ways for you to do it. Don't get hung up on it, just get it done. Those are important. When you're talking to a person annually and you're trying to help them understand different things, like a annual review for your finances, your bank, your insurance, this one would have to do with the real estate. And so it starts off with knowing how much the home is worth. RPR, Realtors Property Resource, is a free resource that you've got. I'm sure your association sponsors their webinars that are free, and maybe they come out and do live ones sometimes. I don't know, but nevertheless, the point I'm getting at is this is something for you to look at, because they package the information that comes out of MLS to make it look much, much better. I talked about service providers. Again, if you've got something like this where you have got your own personal recommendation, so that they're on your website, they're on your landing page, so that when a person needs a heating and air person, they go right to it and they get your recommendation instead of the bizarre way that Angie and Home Advisor and HomeLight does it. Another thing you could have in there are financial calculators. And of course, one of my favorites is the rent versus own, because people can't believe, they focus on this fact that interest rates are high, and then they say, oh, I can't afford a house right now. Even if at 7% interest rates, the situation is it's cheaper to own a house than it is to buy. And if you can plug in the price home that they want, whatever appreciation they feel comfortable with, and then show them that the cost of housing, after you subtract out principal reduction and appreciation, is actually less than the payment that they're making for rent every month. In this example, it was $1,062 more every month to rent than to own. And in a year's time, they'd lose almost $13,000. So they like this type of stuff. We do it in our newsletters multiple times a year. Another great thing for you to use are information guides. We use these things in newsletters, and we'll be talking about something, and then all of a sudden we'll say, if you want more information on this, download our seller's guide, our buyer's guide. The newest one we've got is this making the move to downsize your home, because a lot of people are considering that nowadays. The seminar I did earlier in the month for your association was building a case for homeownership today. And so you can take these things and use them as support material for your newsletters. And then when they download them, you find out if they have an interest in that particular topic. You can turn around, put them on your website for more good information for all the reasons I talked about a moment ago for the blog. You can print them out and use them as a handout, whether you're knocking doors, going around after you just sold a listing or just got a new listing or whatever it may be. Customer appreciation events are always a good idea. Mike Parker, a close friend of mine from Northern Kentucky, has been doing Santa Claus for over 25 years. And this was this past year's Santa Claus. You can see He's got a community service room. And look at how many people showed up for this thing. And it was all free, and he gets their email addresses because he sends them the picture with Santa Claus digitally. And so it's a pretty neat deal. I like wine events. If you like wine, you should consider taking something you're passionate about and making it part of your prospecting. Then it becomes fun. It's you're enthusiastic, and you're doing something that you enjoy that will actually bring you business. And so we could talk more about that, but I'm not going to teach you all the ins and outs. But there's lots of different things you can do for customer appreciation events. Then the last sort of thing, you could do seminars just like we're doing right now, but addressed to first-time buyers, downsizing sellers, investors, all sorts of different things. There's lots of different things you can do. Take your best customers out to lunch periodically. Maybe you schedule one of those every week, one of your best customers. Call the entire sphere of influence twice a year. Occasionally have something in your car that if you are near a person, an old customer's house, you just stop by, and then you don't go empty-handed with them. So what we did was cover a lot of different things that will help you to increase your sphere of influence. When I went to webinars, just like we're here, or seminars, and people would give me all these great ideas, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that would take so much effort to get out there and put it all into practice. I've got to develop all those different things. Well, we have a service called InTouch Systems that will consistently brand you as their real estate pro. And this is what it does. It does 3 different things. We do automated email in the form of newsletters, holiday greetings, birthdays and anniversaries, change your clock, things like that. We do automated social media postings. Every day, Monday through Friday, we will post automatically for you on your Facebook business page, LinkedIn, Instagram business page, what used to be called Twitter, now called X, and even the weekly article into your blog automatically. And then we'll create a personalized landing page that will aggregate all of the information. Now, by the way, everything I showed you in here is really part of InTouch Systems. So if you liked the look and feel of that, you say, wow, that's pretty good. I'd like to have a copy of that. You can get a copy of it. It's there for you. All those information guides, all those calculators, newsletters, social media posts, all of that. What makes us different than a lot of the companies out there is our consistent theme is helping people be better homeowners. We don't do jokes, we don't do trivia, we don't do cat videos. Everything we do are helping people be better homeowners to make you the source of real estate information for your consumer. Our content is always fresh and up to date. That's what we have it as newsworthy. And instead of using creative writers, I develop all the content myself. I've got decades of experience, and I've taught all over the United States, all different types of courses. My background is investments, taxation, marketing. There's just so much there that are all having to do with homeowners. And so we're functioning as your ghostwriter. We'll make you look good. What's nice is you can do it 2 different ways. I'd say 90% of our customers are the set it and forget it. Just set it up, takes 30 minutes, it's done. You don't have to worry about it anymore. If you're one of these people that want to micromanage everything, hey, you know what? We've got all sorts of options for you to be able to do that also. So it's entirely up to you. So if you don't have the time, the resources, or just don't want to do it, let InTouch Systems do it for you. The price is very reasonable, $39 a month. $399 a year is a little bit less, but we have no contracts, so you can try it for a while, and if you don't like it, just quit. Setup's easy. We have a step-by-step wizard that'll walk you right through the process, or you can call our office. We'll take control of your computer and do it for you in about 20 minutes. So if you're interested in joining, you can go to intouchsystems.com And you'll see this screen you're seeing right now. Click on the start free trial. Use the promo code SOI. You'll get a 14-day free trial. You can download everything, check it all out. If you decide that it's not right for you, quit, and you won't be charged a dime if you do it before the 14 days is up. Otherwise, you will be billed for the rest of that month. And then if you're doing it monthly, $39 from that point forward. So if you want to do this on your phone, you can just take a picture of the QR code. But since you've got the website address, you're probably on a computer anyway right now. That might be the easier way for you to do it. Okay, so let me just back up and ask, do you have any questions? Did anything show up in the chat room, Lana, that I need to address?
Nothing in the chat, Pat.
Okay. All right. I'll
Good
give you.
stuff.
Pardon?
I always like your presentations. Lots of good, useful information.
Well, good. Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much for taking time. I'm sorry I went over a little bit, but it's one of those things. Maybe it'll be like Mary. You get a little bit more and you'll feel better about it. So at any rate, thank you very much. If you need to talk to me or want to talk to me, there's my email address at the bottom of the screen, pat@intouchsystems.com. Thank you again.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye now.